Previously on Family Guy.
Well, there we go. I have truly validated myself as the leader of the PJKATOGOTM fandom. But I'm kind of scared. The mean Metacritic score for the console versions plus the PC version of King Kong the Game is 80 out of 100. Meanwhile, the handheld versions are 48 out of 100. So come back next week where we'll see if Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie, on handheld really deserved all the hate it got. This version sucks.
First-person shooters are an interesting concept for the DS. The COD games work as well as you'd think on the DS, but there are some FPSs that are actually great on this handheld, such as Nintendo's Metroid Prime Hunters and Dementium the Ward. Yo, side note, this game, underappreciated. Video topic one day maybe. You control shooters normally by using the D-pad or face buttons to move around, the touchscreen to look around, and then the shoulder buttons perform actions like, you know, doing the shooty bang bang. What makes these games great is that the touchscreen feels great to use, smooth, fluid, and also the touchscreen was used for useful information, making great use of the DS's USP. A radar in Metroid's case, and health and inventory for Dementium. Here's what's on King Kong's bottom screen. A static image that never changes and is only used to reload, look at ammo, which kind of ruins part of the console version's game design, being that the console version wanted to emphasize horror more than anything else, and finally, you can look around with the touchscreen. The thing is, it controls horribly. It's stiff beyond belief, with no options to tweak sensitivity. You move slower than my dead ancestors, the story is pretty damn incomprehensible if you wanted to play it for the plot, especially compared to the console counterparts. Combat is rough with it being so unsatisfying to gun down enemies or quickly attempt to pick up a spear and throw, the AI is thick as shit, and the Kong sections? They're a bit worse than the console versions, not helped by the Silent Hill fog, but I feel this could have been worse. At least the game is only 2 hours long, so you don't suffer for long if you're a completionist or a masochist.
And do that? Oh, for fuck's sake, and you're useless. What the fuck? He went down like a sack of shit after one clip, but 2 clips he didn't do shit. It's not. Nope.
Well, that was one way to start. 1 down, 2 to go. Now look, don't judge the shirt. It is still true. Just love comes in many forms. Speaking of, I bought a copy of this game for my friend Jessica for her birthday, as she said her favourite console was the DS. In retrospect, maybe I should have got her the 360 version, but you know what? She's a good friend. She can take a joke. There was also a PSP version too.
PSP versions of console games are always interesting. Since the PSP was basically a slightly weaker PS2, you'd commonly find PS2 games getting a PSP port. Some with impressive results. Sure, some are conversions and not direct ports, but to name a few, Persona 3, Tekken 5, The Warriors, Tony Hawk Underground 2, Crash Team Racing, and Star Wars Battlefront 2 were great on the PSP. Even Tekken 6, a PS3 game, got a kick-ass port that I played a lot back when. Sure, the graphics weren't great, but the frame rate was locked and there was no content missing. So, the PSP version of PJKKTOGOTM should be interesting.
Now this will be emulated to make it look nicer for the video, but if you care about that kind of thing, don't worry, I played it on original hardware as well, same for every version I played.
We start with a pretty highly compressed FMV sequence setting up the story, with everybody from the console game in said cutscene, but once we hit gameplay, we're all alone. Huh. Creepy. I am guessing this was done to reduce load, but you know what? This kind of aids the game. The survival element is kind of increased here since you only got yourself to take care of, and there's nobody backing you up. A case where limitations may aid the experience. It's kind of cool seeing the opening sequence with only one handle to push instead of 2. Graphics here seem like a pitched down console version, which is great. The same music and sound effects are here from the console version too. This really does feel like you're just playing the PC version on very low settings or something. Controls, of course, are different here because the PSP only has one thumbstick. Well, nub. So to control where you look, you use the face buttons. It's not perfect, and you do move kind of slow, but it's good enough. I still enjoyed the combat in this version way more than the DS version. But once I did the intro, I have seen more than a human woman naked, something felt off. I entered an arena that was from later in the game, missing out one of the best sequences, the part where you're trapped against a horde of crawlies. And then, a Kong mission?
Huh?
Well, this is a case of the devs cutting / reworking content to have a reduced file size to fit the UMD. But I think they could have had a fair bit more of the game here. See, the file size of the King Kong PSP conversion is 400 megabytes, so there's still over a gig free. I mean, they managed to fit Dodgeball, a true underdog story, on a UMD, so I think they could fit more of the story in here. So I'd argue the cuts were due to time constraints. I bet this version had nowhere near as much time compared to the console version. Heck, this probably had less time in the oven than the DS version. So much is missing here. Kong's relationship with Anne is like mine with the demon under my bed, paper thin. I mean, here's a visual example of how Anne is to Kong in this game. There she is. She is for sure dead there. With no other characters with you, any mission involving protecting people is removed, leaving the game being around an hour long with so many set pieces missing. I mean, for example, you see Anne at the start of the game in a cutscene as Jack, and you don't see her again until Kong takes her. And wait, this cutscene and the one at the start were in engine on the console version. You could look around, so are we just watching compressed pre-recorded gameplay? I think we are. I don't know why, I just find that funny. Anyways, Jack's gameplay comes down to shooting stuff and some puzzles. There is little to no variety here. Although the console version was mainly the same, the addition of the other cast members allowed for some extra variety in gameplay and set pieces. Kong plays pretty much the same, which in this case is a compliment, and we even get the New York segment. It's even more butchered than the console version, so yay! So it's an airport. It's got the gameplay there still, and I did enjoy the more solo experience to a point, but it misses the charm of the console version, and it is short, like an hour plus short. But do we get any extras? Well, the scoring system is here. You can replay a level and get a score, but there's no reason for it though. There's no alternative ending like the console version. You just fade to black if you live long enough during the ending, and nope. There's jack shit. Except for a multiplayer though. Yeah, this game of all games has multiplayer. I did actually source 2 PSPs and 2 copies of this game for this video, but unfortunately I couldn't find anybody to play it with me, as I am. So we have to look at footage here. Credits, as always, in the description. The multiplayer mode allows for co-op or competitive gameplay. You pick a section from the main game, and for competitive you try and make it to the end first, with the most score, while in co-op you just try and make it to the end. Yeah, there's not much here. Like, look at the splash screen showing your objective before you begin. Next to no effort here.
Well, for sure an improvement over the DS version, but it's still derivative of its console counterpart. So all we have left is the GBA version.
So it all falls down to this, the weakest system out of the bunch. Before that though, getting all these games was such a weird experience. Seeing these games arrive was like, oh, another copy of King Kong that I only really bought for a joke. Yay. But getting the GBA version felt kind of cool. When you find a Game Boy Advance game in the wild, it's normally just the cart. Same goes for the NES or SNES. This is because the games always came in cardboard boxes, something that's easily disposable when damaged. So getting a full GBA game felt so cool to me. Sure, I could have paid a bit more and got one sealed, but no way, I'm a video editor. I pay my bills by doing things I'm not proud of. Pre-owned games have a story behind them. Like, this person got their copy from Game, a popular retailer of video games in the UK, for full price and took alright care of the game. Enough to keep everything that came in the box. Here we got the cart itself, the cute bite-sized manual, and a map?
So, the PSP version is just the PS2 version, but hacked at more than my self-esteem. The DS version is, well, a demake of a demake. And as for the GBA version?
PJKKTOGOTM for the GBA was actually released under 2 names. In the UK it's called King Kong the Official Game of the Movie, while at least in the USA it was called Kong the Eighth Wonder of the World. What's with the name change? Well, every version we have seen so far is a shooter. This game, well, you've had a clue in the background of this paragraph. This game is like the GBA and SNES Zelda games. Kong GBA, of all things, is a top-down action-adventure game with puzzles and caves that function as dungeons, with walls that you can blow up to enter secret rooms where you can find items. Yeah, it's wearing its influence on its sleeve. And it's not bad. Nothing out of this world, and Zelda Minish Cap is better, but I appreciate playing something different. The story is, well, pretty much the same. There is more of a presence of island members, but Kong's here, he ends up in New York, blah blah blah. What was cool though was at times there were in-engine cutscenes. It may be minor, but when I got to see things like Anne walking over Jack, who I think got punched in the eye before the game story began, I was caught off guard. It's a small feature, but it's welcome. Something I say often.
That one is for your imagination.
For the first and only time in this King Kong escapade, we get to play as Anne and Carl along with Jack and the big KK himself. Each of the 3 human characters have different abilities. Jack's the defender. He has a machete and an AK to gun down anything in his path. Carl can use hand grenades and is able to push and pull things. And Anne is the healer, when she's in your party. What's cool is that you're able to split off from the team. Say you enter an area and your homies are weak, you could go solo and then grab them later. You can't take the solo person though and leave the plane you're currently in. You have to stay within the section you load in. This mechanic is mainly used however for puzzles. A wide variety of them take place in dungeons. The dungeons themselves, they're fine. They did drag for me, and the puzzles were like if the Zelda dev teams had a kid and the kid was showing them their macaroni drawing, but they all worked and did the job. I was powering through them though, rarely stopping unless I clicked onto the fact that I did not have an item I needed yet. For example, I could not access certain paths because I could not hit a button, so I came back once I had the spear. Combat is overall fine, with Jack doing most of the heavy lifting, with his machete and gun combo. But Carl can fight too with his grenades, although you better save them for puzzles or taking out wildlife. You don't have many at the start, but thankfully, this game has a crafting system.
Ah, see, I grew up with this, so this is about my level.
Along with crafting stuff like meds and grenades, you can also craft a raft, say that 10 times fast, which allows for set pieces where you gotta shoot shit in your path, and at one point even have a boss fight on a raft. The boss fights in general are pretty alright. Most of the big baddies are faced by Kong in these side-scrolling sections. They're fine. Even Kong GBA's New York segment is fine. It does have an alternate ending though, so that's cool. Monkey. Finally, navigation in this game a lot of the time came down to walking around and hoping you find something. You do have an in-game map, but with so much blocking your path, the map being zoomed out, and that it's hidden behind a menu, I did have to use the packaged in map at times to make sure I knew where I was going.
So King Kong for the GBA. It stands out from this sea of shooters beside me, and it is leagues better than the DS version. But let's kill 2 stones with 1 V-Raptor here. The DS version could have been good, and here's how.
So, a shooter did not work on the DS, so port the GBA version to the DS. But let's use the DS's unique features. One of the issues I mentioned was that I had problems navigating, and had to use the IRL map provided with the game. Well, let's put the map on the bottom screen, allowing for us to see where we are in the world via a close-up or a zoomed-out version of the map. For shits and giggles, let's also add the inventory and the crafting menus to the bottom screen, allowing for in-game item swapping and creation, making the game much more smooth and enjoyable. Do that, and that would make this the best handheld King Kong game out there. Just like how Wind Waker HD is the best version of Wind Waker, thanks to the addition of the gamepad and having the inventory and map on the second screen. Hire me, Ubisoft! I mean, come on! Or maybe not, I don't know.
So, King Kong games. Which of these deserves your time? Well, in my opinion, the only version really worth playing nowadays is the 360 version, helped even more so that you can play it on the Xbox One and Series family of consoles, so I see no reason not to give it a shot. Plus, it's dirt cheap nowadays.
Fair play to Ubisoft for trying to demake the base game for the PSP, rework it for the DS, and create a whole new game for the GBA, but none of the 3 versions I just mentioned are worth your time. But demakes and lesser ports have always been interesting to me, and I hope you enjoyed this interesting ride with me.
Maybe I should retire as the leader of the PJKKTOGOTM fan club. I mean, as a real fan, I should love everything about this game, right? No! A real fan and logical person has criticisms of what they enjoy and love. It's just how people accept the criticism. I mean, Ubisoft did that by looking at the terrible reviews for King Kong DS and never making a game like this ever again. At least that's what I'm going to assume. Oh, perfect example! Jessica! She's a friend of mine I've known since before I could count. She was the one that taught me actually it was a great 16th birthday. She can take a joke. We'll talk about my mistake and move on. Heck, maybe I'll get a second member of the PJKKTOGOTM fan club. I spent way too much on these.
Hello there, thank you very much for watching this video. There isn't really any good bloopers from this video, and the ones I did use are in this behind the scenes documentary thing that I'm making at the same time as making these videos. If it is out, here it is in the side bits, this behind the scenes aforementioned video. And if not, here's also the part 1 to this double bill of King Kong video games, where I covered the console King Kong games, and there's a lot of them, as you saw from that stack of games I bought needlessly. There's a video there, there's a video there. Hopefully I got that right in the YouTube space that the 2 cards are in. Thank you so much for watching this video. I think I said that already, but you know what? It's a phrase so nice, you should say it twice. I should really script these bits. Yeah.
Look at the top of his head!